All right, I believe we are now good. We're getting the little green bars, which says we are ready to go, and we are back to bring you another IPL production as part of the sort of big debate series. This is going to be more of a pretty heavy chat, I believe. Not so much of a debate, but it is Suicide Prevention Month, so we just wanted to sort of touch on the topics, open the conversation, and sort of hopefully help people process some of their emotions, maybe find ways to recognise signs in people and stuff. So I'm Kit Adams. I'm joined here today by Mark Cozens. He has come in here to share his story with us, and hopefully other people will connect with that and sort of be able to relate to it, and maybe help some people heal or recognise signs in anybody that is struggling. We should mention, of course, if anybody is struggling with mental health, to call Lifeline. We will get that put up on the screen, and we'll get you some more details for that soon. But yeah, apart from that, thanks for being in here today, Mark. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I'm doing well. I've just left my daughter's netball game, which was a cliffhanger, and unfortunately I've lost by a point. But that's the way it goes. It's actually really, that's something that I think is important to mention too, because my daughter said, how do you feel about me coming today? And she says, Mark, Dad, that's more important to come here and talk about this. So I left at 3/4 time, and she had a black armband on for her brother, who we lost 4 years ago to suicide, and obviously that's had a massive impact on our lives since then.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for coming in here today and being open and talking about this. 4 years ago is still pretty recent. We will touch on other subjects and stuff, but how are you doing with it? 4 years on is not a long time. How are you going processing the emotions?
I've actually feel like in the last 12 months I've started to work through some things. In the first 3 years it was just a blur and just trying to deal with things, and I didn't deal with them. I basically was self-medicating with alcohol.
Yeah.
And just like COVID, that was a blessing for me, because you weren't allowed to socialise, things like that. I just wanted to hide away from the world. I didn't want to face the day or anything like that. So
I suppose the timing could have been a blessing but a curse at the same time.
Yeah.
Because sort of cut you off from a support network, I imagine.
It did, but in all honesty, I don't think I was ready for it. Work was amazing. They gave me and my family all the support that they could. But I went to counselling pretty early on, and I wasn't ready for it. And last year I went back, and I still go now to the Rockingham Alcohol and Drug Alliance, just around the corner.
Yep.
I go in for a checkup every 4 weeks just to touch base and all that. I've just find it really helpful for myself. There's no judgment there. I think most people that are in those sorts of things are there for a reason, whether it's mental health or dealing with some kind of trauma.
Yeah, of course, it needs to be a safe space where people can be open
and
share those things, and because everybody's going through some stuff. So.
Exactly.
Would you like to tell me a little bit about him as well, and sort of explain who we've lost?
Yeah, well, Brody was my stepson. Yep. I met him when he was 4.
Right, yep.
He passed away when he was 19, just before he was 20. He was one of those kids that was always on the go, like everything had to be done now. And that to me, it was a good thing, because I'm sort of like the opposite. Tristan and I were talking earlier about nothing like leaving everything to the end for a deadline.
Yeah. I'm similar to that, sort of procrastinating and stuff. And sometimes you see those people that have that energy, that get up and go, and you just want to bottle it, But
that was Brody, and there was he was mischievous at times, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, obviously had some struggles, and we didn't. I suppose we just didn't know what it was at the time. We tried our best, and
now looking back, is there anything that you think that you sort of recognised back then that you sort of would have been a red flag that you didn't really pick up on at the time?
I think the disappointing thing for me personally is that a lot of these things that we say we look like what you look for in people are well documented. You go and you have interactions with experts and, medical and that sort of thing, and they know it. And they can tell you about it, but then there's no follow-up. Yeah. There's no support. And then you wonder, well, is that just some people or is that all of it? You think, oh, no, that's not going to happen to my child.
Yeah.
And I suppose, there's that sort of guilt associated with that you didn't pick up on those sorts of things. And then towards the end, you just, I suppose when they're an adult, you try and help and support, but there's only so many things you can do. I can remember being frustrated with, because there was interactions, he struggled towards the end, we had interactions with the police and all that, and you think, well, we asked for help. What, why didn't anyone help us? And
where was the community at that point to sort of get around you and give you the support you need? And
I don't know, and it was unfair. It was sort of like I just didn't understand, and it was unfair to say that to those guys on that day. When I look back on it, they do an amazing job.
Yeah,
and they're fighting fires. They're there when the inferno's going on, and what needs to be done is way before that, and they do the best they can, and that's something that we all need to learn from. You hope that it doesn't happen to someone else, but unfortunately it does. I was saying to Triss earlier, the man who found Brodie, unfortunately his daughter, the same thing happened this year.
Oh no!
And I know it happens to other people too, and you just think it's not going away. So how do we do it? People say, what would you like to see happen? And
that's sort of where my next question was coming, that after you felt like you didn't have that sort of community around you and you didn't have the support you need, are you seeing that sort of develop more now? That are people becoming more aware of the support that's needed?
Yeah, I would. It's probably not true to say that I didn't have the support. I just didn't understand in myself. I didn't have the knowledge to know what to do myself, and I think most of us don't, because it's something that we haven't had. It's something pretty extreme to deal with.
Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, the way I look at it is, you think globally or on the big scheme, but how do you make a difference as an individual and as a community? So I suppose I've spoken to some politicians and said, to me, I want you to come together, both sides of politics, put a long-term commitment towards putting some schemes in place that will support community. I mean, from a young age, people, we look at people with homelessness now.
Yeah.
You have family breakup as a result. People don't have stability and that sort of thing. And then where does that end up affecting children in life, or even adults? I mean, as an adult, you want to be able to provide for your family, and you feel that pressure of a failure, and sometimes it's not it's not your own making.
It's a lot of pressure that's being put on young men these days, and I feel like sometimes they don't see the bigger picture, and their perception can get very shut off, and sometimes they're not looking at all the options maybe when they decide to make the choices they do.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that there's just I don't know, it's hard. There's no real manual on it and stuff like that, and it's not a sort of cookie-cutter situation where one sort of treatment suits everybody, I suppose.
Exactly.
And how do you really isolate the individual that's going to need it and stuff like that? And,
yeah.
Were there signs sort of leading up to it with Brodie?
Towards the end, there was. But I think what I would like to think is that how we change things is being able to identify them earlier, much earlier in people that are struggling. I mean, we can probably see in our friends sometimes when they're just not themselves. Yeah. But is that just something that's happened, or is it an ongoing thing? And we don't know, and you can't know, but I think by having discussions like this and people actually talking about mental health, will actually make it a more open conversation. So you say, I'm not just having a bad day here.
Yeah.
This has been going on for a while.
Yeah.
And I can't stand the word stigma. It needs to go.
Yeah.
Because the continual use of that word talking about mental health is an obstacle to people feeling open and about talking about how they're feeling or
it's
talking to others.
By perpetuating the use of that word, they're perpetuating the fact that, or maybe we shouldn't talk about it, but we should just be openly talking about it and stuff like that. And there needs, like I said, that sometimes they don't see the bigger picture and they think that maybe that unfortunately is the best option for them. It's like they lose perception of the big. They put the blinkers on and they don't realise that calling a mate and asking for help and being open with a mate and having that conversation and being vulnerable is a much better option than that, you know. So I think that they just want to sort of maybe get caught up in not wanting to be known as the person that has mental health issues until it's too late.
Yeah.
You know, like it's much better to open up and say, look, I'm struggling with my mental health at the moment, than making those final choices. And I mean, I've had a couple of mates myself where you don't really see any signs and it is sort of an almost in the moment thing, you know, where they're in relationships that sometimes are a little bit toxic and next thing I know, my sister's ringing me and saying, Dave's not with us anymore because he's had a blow-up with his missus and he's just thought that was the best way to deal with it. And I just think there needs to be more support for young and middle-aged men and, of course, everybody, but there seems to be a sort of demographic that's more prone to it. And there definitely needs to be, I think, more support around that for young men. And are you getting more involved with groups and stuff now to sort of focus on prevention and helping people?
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be able to help out the Mind the Walk. That's run by the Rotary groups in the area. So it's Baldivis, Safety Bay and Palm Beach, the Rockingham ones. So they organise a event once a year, and it's about the last few years it's been walking around Lake Richmond starting from Shoalwater where the Manuel Towers place is. It's a beautiful walk, and then this year they're moving it down to Palm Beach at Rotary Park, and that's about people obviously going on a wonderful walk, and there's all different experts around the area talking about the things that you can find in the lake. But it's this year there's a focus on the senses. So there's a list of kids can go around and it's just, you know, you stop, what do you feel and all that sort of thing. And I think it's just about awareness.
Yeah,
Snapping, because, I mean, you can get tunnel visioned on things, can't you? Like when you're talking about you can't see a way out. And just that thing of being able to look at things from a different perspective, even if, you know, 5 or 10 minutes later in the day, your attitude or the way you look at things can be totally different.
Yeah, you just need a little bit of different input sometimes to sort of adjust your perception and stuff. And
that's all about us learning how to deal with that, isn't it? I mean, I'm 50 next year, and it was not spoken about. It wasn't even, you know, it wasn't a thing. And stigma, you know, don't talk about it. And what's the point? You know, like you know, like you love your family, your friends, and you just want them to all, you know, like to work through it together, whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, of course.
So just
anything's better than that option, you know. So
exactly.
Surely we can work through anything that's better than that. So, you're saying a lot of processing emotions and sort of changing your perception, and you're saying for the first 3 years that you sort of really struggled with it. What sort of emotions did you go through? Because I imagine there could be obviously sadness and mourning. I've seen some people that get somewhat angry about it, and the choices they've made and stuff like that. Did you experience much of that yourself?
Do you know, that's the one thing I haven't felt. They go on about the 7 stages of grief. I haven't felt anger yet.
Right.
I've never been angry.
Yeah.
Like when they say to Brody, I've just felt sorrow, loss, and then, you know, the what if. Yeah. The what if, you know, like I've spoken to people and I said, you know, I always thought now, you know, we sit around and think, what happened in those years, you know, like when things were a bit wild and out of hand, because there, we all go through our stages at times, don't we? Being off track, and then you got time to reflect on it, and I always hope that, and then like today, my daughter playing a netball, we spoke about coming here, and then she wanted to go to Bunnings to get some black armband to wear for her brother.
Yeah.
And, it would have been nice to be sitting there with him next to me, cheering, and
of course.
Just those things, the what if.
Does that pop into your head very often? Like, what would Brody be doing now
if
he was still with us and stuff?
Definitely.
And what sort of path did you expect him to follow in life?
I didn't have... I mean, as a parent, you just want your kids to be happy.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that says you want someone to, do an apprenticeship or whatever it is, and have a successful career. When I say successful career, what do you say is a successful career? Is it a steady job, good pay? Yeah. And then you think, but is that what makes you happy? What I would love for him and for the other kids is just to be happy, and content. Because to me, what's success?
It doesn't really matter what you're doing, I suppose, whether you're working in a boardroom or the stock market, or if you're unblocking somebody's toilet. If you're doing it with a smile on your face, then I suppose that is success.
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't try to put my own sort of hopes and wishes on the kids. I want them to go and find their own thing and just support them, be happy for them.
Was there any environmental changes you think that Brody could have done before that might have helped prevent it? Like, was it people he was hanging with or work he was doing that things that might have changed his perspective a little bit?
There was some things. I prefer not to talk about
fair enough.
that.
Yeah.
But, I suppose at the end of the day...
you don't feel like he was happy where he was?
No, I don't. I really don't. So, but I mean, the other thing.
Would you encourage people that if they recognise that to be more forceful in trying to pull somebody out of a situation like that? Or is it?
I think it's up to the individual.
At a 19-year-old, he's an adult. He's doing what he feels is best for him, and I suppose it's not always that easy to forcefully get somebody to change their environment, but
without a doubt. And I think we're all our own individual personalities. So what works for one doesn't work for the other.
Yeah.
And then I suppose at the time also, like as parents, you're sort of like you're overawed by the situation you find yourself in, and are you at your peak in terms of being able to rationally deal with things? I don't know.
Yeah.
From that point of view, so.
Yeah, it's really not something that parents have sort of trained to deal with so much, or like you don't have repeat experiences, hopefully, and so there's not something that you can go back and refer to on how to do it right and stuff like that. So I imagine it's very hard to sort of move on. And what was your first step when you got past those sort of 3 years of not wanting to engage in counselling? What was what got you across the line to engage?
Well, I was at a crossroads in life, I suppose. My wife and I separated, and I thought, I'm going to go one of two ways here. I'm going to go really downhill, or I'm going to have to try and get my act together. And so I went to the doctor, and I said I want to get back on my antidepressants, and I also said I want some medication to stop me drinking. And he says, I can't give you that until you speak to someone.
Right.
And I thought, wow. And it was just before the Easter long weekend. I remember it well. And so I went on my way. And about 8 days later, I got a phone call from a lady, a nurse, and she was an angel to me, like she says, I heard you ask for some help. When was your last drink? And I said, it was 8 days ago. So that was when I went to the doctor, and she says, wow, that was, normally we like to try and help people through that. And then she says, why did you want the service? And I spoke about what happened and where I was at, and I was really in a dark place.
Yep.
She says, you need to come in and see us. And I've been there ever since. And I mean, I'm not abstinent from alcohol. I'm not one of these people that's sworn off it, but I don't drink anywhere near like I used to. And couple of weeks before Brody's anniversary this year, I went out and I saw Tristan actually. We were at the Rockingham Gala fundraiser that Jess.
Oh,
yeah,
right,
it was a really good night, and didn't have a lot of beers, but the next day, gee whiz, you know, like I was just mentally drained and just in a dark place, and I thought, got to stop. So I recognise that now. Like before, I would have that sort of anxiety, I used to call it, hungover and just stressed.
Right, and you're just not processing information.
Yeah, and then
the
only way to calm myself down was to have a drink, you know, and so I just said, no, I'm not going back. So I haven't had. I had a beer last night watching me friend's son play football.
Oh, right,
but that's it, one beer, you know, like it's not a thing. Whereas before, if I'd had one, I would just keep drinking.
Many, 10's not enough.
Yeah, so I just sort of just been able to, like I suppose, take a bit of responsibility for how, you know,
and I sort of feel like that shows that you've actually got more control over the substance, you know. Like I know that a lot of people go through substance abuse, and I don't judge anybody's journey through that and sort of recovery from it, but I feel like there are some that need to stay away from it completely, like you're saying, one's too many, but I think when you can sort of have one socially and then stop, I think that's when you've actually really taken control of yourself again, and you're not letting yourself be controlled by the substances.
Yeah. And it's such an awkward thing because it's so acceptable, you know, like
it's so part of Australian culture and stuff like that.
Yeah,
to have a drink and stuff. So,
but having said that, do you know what? When I told my friends what I was doing, they were unbelievable and it's really supportive.
Yeah,
they'd say, "Oh, mate, I'll come around and have a cuppa, or I'll go to their house,"
you know, like, and it's something.
You know what? And we never would have had that conversation before that. You know, and there was no judgment, and then they knew what I was doing and why I was doing it, and that was, you know, and the same thing, you know, like you said, you'd rather have someone here, or, you know, like you're going to, no matter what, you're going to support your friends and family. You're just going to back them up and say, here for you, mate, no worries.
You just sort of really want them to do that. You want them to come to you instead of struggling by yourself. Like, come to me anytime, you know, and I think it's, mates should promote that more, that it's a safe place. Anytime you want to come to me, anything you want to talk about, you know, is hard. I know, but it's always the better option.
Yeah,
you know?
and I think the other thing I think people find intimidating is if someone does come to you and say, "Look, I'm really struggling here," you can be a little bit overawed by it, and you think, well, you think, what do I do? But it's not your role to be able to sort everything out. It's your role to be there.
Just to listen
sometimes. To have someone listen. You know what? People say to me, I don't know what to say, Mark. And I say, there's nothing you can say. How can you relate to this? I said, just the fact that you sit there and you listen sometimes, that's all I need.
Yeah.
And
I've got to admit, I've actually had that exact situation where I've been one of those people that didn't know what to say, so I didn't really engage with the person that I knew was struggling because I didn't know at the time sort of how to be there for them, and that stayed with me. Like, I felt bad about that afterwards, that I wasn't able to be that person that was there, you know, and I wish I had done more at the time, and that was just being there to support someone that had lost a family member, you know. So it's hard sometimes, and I wish I had been more open to just being there and just being an ear for somebody to vent to, and not thinking that I had to have the answers, you know, because it's not something you can fix.
Well, that's another thing, you know, like that was something I struggled with too. You think, I should be able to fix this. Why can't I sort this out? And that's something that I always think, you know, like, and you know, and talking about being there and listening, you know, when Brady first passed away, I remember my daughter, and so she was 11 at the time, and she was just crying and sobbing and just, you know, just heartbroken.
Of course. And
I didn't know what to say, and I said to her, "Oh, come on, love, stop crying."
Yeah.
And I thought, like, I mean, I'm a big crier now. It's like a pressure relief thing for me. Like when it all comes out, and then I can it's sort of a reset. And I thought that was just because I didn't know how
to let emotions out.
Didn't know how to make her feel better. Like you're saying, what do I say to fix this? So my reaction was to say, stop crying. I mean, I look back on it now and think, why, but I didn't know how to cope with it either.
Of course, you didn't have the tool set to deal with it at
yeah,
the time.
And I'm not sure that I do. I'm not sure that anyone does, but you just sort of have a bit more of awareness.
It's not something that you can fix, but just sort of be there and engage and stuff. And I think you do feel like I'm the sort of person in my family that people come to fix things, and then so when you come across that, it's dealing with emotions, and it's a skill set that you just don't have. It hurts, but I really wish I'd dealt with it at the time, because now down the line, it hurts me now more that I didn't than anything I would have felt dealing with it at the time.
Yeah.
So I wish I'd been a little bit, I don't know, just open to emotions and stuff at the time, and just accept the fact that I couldn't fix it.
Yeah, and I suppose we, you can only do what you can do at the time, and I suppose this is why, let's just get it out there and start talking about it, because we're older. I look at my children now, and we talk about it openly. So it's not a taboo subject. There's no. It's a normal discussion. Same as do your homework, clean. It's normal to talk about. You shouldn't feel like it's not.
Yeah.
So the next generations coming. Well, I mean, where do you start change? I mean, we can go and try and change ourselves and become aware. I know, like Tristan, you guys run the mental health first aid course. Great. I did that at work too. Fantastic. I think everyone should do that, because as someone who might be asked by a friend, look, I'm struggling, it gives you the reassurance to say, okay, yep, it's not my job to fix it, but these are the things I can do to help this person. And it is it's a real, like it's like an honour or whatever to think that someone has come to you and think, I can tell you something that I don't understand myself, but I'm really struggling here, and can you help me through it? I mean, that's a really a powerful thing.
Really sort of underrated in society, the ability to do that. To sort of be an ear that people can rely on to know that's there and stuff like that. And like you're saying, where do you start? Does it start in schools? Is this something we need to start talking to kids about maybe in high school and stuff? They teach them how to go out and do their taxes a little bit, how to get a job a little bit of sex education. That's all good. They need to know all that stuff. Yeah. But I think maybe they're lacking in some areas, and it's emotional development, and being in relationships and compromising with other people, and learning how to talk.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing is, I mean, my children, they're growing up with social media. Like, we used to come home, and that was it. Whatever had happened at school or wherever during the day, as all you had to fear was your mum and dad when you come home for not cleaning your room or whatever, But you had that break. You had that little bit of downtime where whatever. I mean, even if there'd been a little bit of a disagreement, a conflict or whatever, half the time it was resolved because everyone had the night off, and you go back to school and everything's normal or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas it just seems to be 24/7 for kids now, and I've never experienced that. You know what I mean? So how do we know what to be aware of? I find that that's a real concern for me. I know that my daughter's spoken about stuff that she's worried about at school, and that's a real worry. Last year, did you take the phones off? I've got a 14-year-old
daughter and stuff like that, and she's gets home and she's just spent all day at school with these kids, and sometimes there's bad situations. She gets bullied and stuff. She actually come home with a split lip the other day, and it just doesn't stop. She's still connected with all those people as soon as she gets home, and there's no chill, there's no downtime like you're saying. They just get it all the time, and our generation aren't used to dealing with that, so. There's definitely got to be some sort of pitfalls and stuff to it that we need to sort of learn about. Our generation needs to, I think, also put in the effort to become more aware of it.
Exactly. So. And I think how do you look for it as well? Like, I wouldn't say I was to grab my daughter's phone. Yeah. I wouldn't even know what apps to go in. Like how you got Facebook. I use Facebook, and I use Instagram to a lesser degree, but I wouldn't know how to go into these other ones that they've all got. I wouldn't even know the names of half of them.
No.
And then where would I go to see if someone was messaging her or bullying or so how do you even with good intentions, you don't know how to navigate through these things. Well, some of us don't anyway.
Well, no, you're right. I'm the same. And it seems like there's always new apps coming out and always new ways for them to contact each other. And the technology side of things has become it's got a life of its own, and it's hard for people of our generation to sort of think, oh, we're already dealing with so much, now is that another thing we've got to deal with, so and how do you restrict it?
Yeah, exactly. And it may be, you're not going to restrict it, let's be honest, it's the way of the world from now on, isn't it? But just, I suppose, giving kids the idea, say, let's just put it down, let's just talk, like we at home, we'll sit down, we'll play cards or we'll play Monopoly, and you know what? That's another dynamic for stress. That is another dynamic when you've got that going on. You have your arguments, but it's a good learning. You learn to lose, you learn to win. How do you
exactly do that? My younger ones lost their mind when they didn't win the first game we played and stuff. I went and got a little cup made, a Cup of Champions. We'd have little family game nights and stuff, and whoever won that round was the Cup of Champions winner. And the younger ones hadn't processed loss, and it sort of made me more aware of that, and it's all, like you're saying, we can't restrict their access to the social media, which is having an impact on them, definitely has an impact on them, not being able to have that break from them, like you said. And I think we need to, again, sort of teach them at a younger age, whether it's in schools or just parents becoming more aware and having conversations with their kids about how to process emotions and hopefully not let bullies get to you. I know it's easier said than done. And try and remember the compliments and forget the insults, If you learn how to do that, please let me know,
exactly.
Because it's a hard one. But back to why we're here. How do you remember Brody now? What sort of milestones during the year? Do you still celebrate him and stuff, obviously? And
we always talk about Brody, and it's a strange thing, when sleep disruption was a big thing after he passed away, and you use Facebook? Righto. So as you know, you probably, I don't know where you are, but it's a big thing for me. Memories as of midnight, you get the next day's midnight, next day's memory. So first thing I do when I wake up is I look at the memories, and like you see events or whatever, and sometimes you can look at the same photo 2 or 3 weeks apart. One day you can be happy and you can remember it, and other times it's just the sad, the longing, all that sort of thing. So that's a daily thing that you deal with, but like Father's Day last weekend, kids' birthdays, son's birthday tomorrow, his birth, just those sorts of things, significant days where I suppose people come together.
Yeah.
That's when it's more like...
And is it more of just a personal reflection thing where you sort of have your own memories, or do you try and open up the conversation about him and sort of talk to family and friends and sort of check in on everybody about... how they're processing?
With the kids, definitely talk with the kids a lot. Today, getting organised for netball, and Charlie says, I want to get black tape to recognise, for Brody, and I think that's, I was proud, I thought that was a really special thing to do.
Absolutely.
And then I put the tape on her arm, and I gave her a kiss when she went on, told her I love her. And that's the sort of thing that you just, it's a big part of your life that's missing, and brings it home.
Yeah.
And I love him and proud of him, and I never want his memory to disappear and to talk about him.
No, of course, yep.
That's just things like that. Anything can happen in a day that'll spark it up, good or bad feelings.
Yeah, and you embrace that.
Good
bad, and just want to...
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And different, you just, how do you like process it? And some days you can, some days you can't, you know. And I remember sitting there one day and talking about social media, going through Mike Tyson. He lost a daughter. She passed away, and he was saying that he doesn't. The way he reconciles it now is he doesn't understand why she's gone, but he basically he's saying he was grateful for that period of his life when he got to know her.
Right.
And some days you can, come to peace with that, and other days you still long for it. But I suppose there's just so many people that have lost, like children through whatever means.
Yeah.
And it's just something that's always on your mind, like to be honest with you.
How do you go with processing that now? Are you just grateful for the time that you got with him, or are you always, obviously it's going to be a part of you that always wants more, but can you accept that there's not going to be more? Have you managed to process those emotions?
I don't think you accept it. Accept's not the word, because it means that you, accept to me means that I imply that I'm comfortable with that, and there's no comfort in that.
Yeah,
there's no comfort at all knowing that there's no more new memories.
Yeah.
I know that that's the reality.
Yeah,
and whatever life brings, that's a part of the reality of my life going forward. So and it's an ongoing way. Some days are good, some days are bad. That's the way it is. So. And it's not going to change, and that is a hard thing. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
And that's the sadness, And when you meet someone and they've just recently lost someone to suicide, you can look at them, and I remember soon after Brody passed away, a lady came around. She'd lost her son, and she was talking to us, and she says, I'll tell you now, the second year's harder than the first year. And, at that time, you don't think life can get any worse, and then you think, wow, it gets worse than this. And she was honest, there's no point sugarcoating it.
Do you feel that helped you sort of relate to something in someone else? And
I just, when I meet people in recently, the man who found our son, his daughter died by suicide as well, and he contacted me, and he rang me, and I just got home from work, and I couldn't understand a word he said. I couldn't understand. He was just shattered, his voice. I couldn't make out what he said. And, I just went numb, and I knew that he was telling me, and he wanted me to reassure him, and he wanted some answers, and I had nothing. I had because I knew what was coming his way, and he says, I've got to go, and I says, look, mate, I'll call you tomorrow, and I'm so sorry. I can't even remember exactly what I said. And then I remember laying on the couch, and I was just in shock. I went into shock because I knew it brought a lot of stuff back for me, and I knew what he was going to have to go through. And I only come out of it because my phone rang about 10 minutes later, and I answered the phone, and I was just bawling my eyes out, and they go, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" And I couldn't talk. And then I said to him what had happened. And they're going, "Oh, mate." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I remember I had to go to work the next day because it was a meeting, a union meeting, and I'm one of the delegates at work, and I couldn't pull out of it. And I said to the other guy I was going in with, I said, "Look, mate, this is what's happened." I says, "I'm just not with it today."
Yeah.
I says, I really shouldn't be here today. I'm just going to sit back and because otherwise I don't know how I'm going to react, you know what I mean? And my mind's away from it. And, then I went home and I was sort of like just spaced out. And I've spoken to him since, and, I won't go into details because they're very personal conversations. But and we're very different people as well. But you have that bond now. You have that understanding, like you what he feels and what I feel is different, but or how he processes it, but I know that underlying sadness and pain.
Yeah.
And that's a reassuring thing, I think, sometimes. It's sort of like a safe space. If you're sitting with people that have been through it, there's nothing you can say that you feel like I could say something to you and I don't want to shock you, because some of the things you say, people are like, whoa, I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah.
But if you've experienced it, there's nothing you can say that is confronting to people, because they can relate to it, or they might not have had that same feeling, but they can understand. Yeah. They can understand what you're going through, relatable. Which is a really useful thing at times. But it can be sad as well, because depending on where you are in your grieving process,
bring it back for you. And do you feel like you've through your unfortunate experiences, have you sort of managed to help your friend process things, and have you been able to be there in a way for your friend that you maybe wouldn't have been able to before?
Oh, look, I don't think it's possible for anyone to be able to relate to someone who's lost someone to suicide without having been through it themselves. I honestly don't. Whether that's because the person you're talking to also feels the comfort in knowing that you have experienced it, and like I said, there's nothing you can say that's going to
really shock.
Yeah. So there's that sort of level of understanding, even though you might be feeling totally different about things. There's a level of understanding and acceptance. In terms of, I try to be very open about mental health now, my own experiences, because what's the point of not being open about my own experiences? Because if it helps someone, or someone goes, they can relate to it and go, yeah. And people talk to me about it, which is can be good and bad some days, because if you're having a struggle yourself, but but you know what? We're all in it together, and as a community, we've got to try and break this cycle. Yeah. Break this cycle and make people feel like, like we can get through it. We can get through it. There's hope. And then supporting people like that, going, like if you've lost someone, like saying, okay, like here to talk if you want to talk. Might not, But, and the other thing, like the Are You Okay Day, I think one of the best things that people say about that is, if I ask you, are you okay? Yeah. And you go, you know what, Mark, I don't really have a good rapport with you. I don't feel comfortable telling you. But the fact you've asked me, I'm thinking, I'm not having the best, but I get on well with Tristan. I need to go and I'm going to go and talk to him. And I think that's the other thing. Like, if you think you might not be comfortable talking to someone about it, you go, I do really want to talk to someone.
Just sort of make them realise that they do want to talk to somebody.
Yeah, so who do I go and find?
Someone a bit closer to them, maybe. So.
Yeah, who do I want to go and talk to about that? Yeah. So I think there's a two-way responsibility. Like, we have to be honest. If someone asks us, Mark, you doing okay? And you have to be honest to say that. Whether it's, if you ask me, like I said, I would need to go and find who I feel comfortable talking to.
Yeah, of course.
And then if someone comes to me and says, I'm struggling, then we have to be able to try and support them along the way, and things like the mental health first aid course, or just, there's a lot of websites of things to do. And services are difficult to get into and all that. So it's important that there are support people there, just like friends and that, just to keep checking in and talking about it, and just have that open conversation. There's no shame. Yeah. Let's just talk about it, whatever. And some days are better than others.
And there's no right answers.
There is no right answers,
It's just a conversation of people just talking about their real world experiences and how that's affected them emotionally. So, and is it hard to you're saying you have bad days, you have good days. Obviously that's based on the memories you're having about Brody. When you're having a bad day, is it hard to reset and to sort of bring back the good memories and change that mindset?
Yeah.
Or is it something that you just realise that you need to sit in for a little while and just go through a little bit more of that?
Yeah, I think that's for me, that's a big thing. I like I said, anniversary dates and stuff like that, I sort of recognise it now. I know what's coming. It builds. Yeah. But because I've experienced it, I can recognise it, and that's the same. Like, I'm a shift worker, So being tired has an effect on me as well. I know that at the end of my second night, I'm not a good sleeper in between night shifts.
Right.
So I sort of know my sort of like danger zones, well, not a danger zone, but when I can be susceptible to being flat.
When you're going to be sort of emotionally vulnerable.
Yeah, so I recognise that, and I know I've been through it, and I just need to, like, I know that it'll come good, because I know that that's part of, like if all the planets align, you're having a bad day, like a sad memory comes up or whatever, and you're tired and all those sorts of things. That's like, like with the drinking, if I'm in that, I'll just stop, I won't do it, so just being able to recognise things like that.
Aware of your own emotional state and what's sort of down the road if you take the wrong path.
Yeah.
And do you feel, with the 3 years you said before counselling, do you feel like you wish you had sort of pushed yourself to get into counselling sooner, or do you feel like that's the time I needed and everybody needs their own amount of time and there's no defined sort of thing on when people should start to reach out and connect?
Yeah, I mean, I look back on things and I regret so much, and I suppose a lot of the guilt I have is my other two children. Like I feel like they dealt with a lot and missed out on a lot of their childhood, or a bit of their childhood because of my inability to deal with things, and that's something that I reflect on. But in terms of, do I wish I'd done something earlier? Of course, I wish I'd never felt the way I felt, but is it a forced thing? Something happened in my life where I knew that I was at the crossroads, and that was what made me think I want to change, and to face up to it. And it's, I reckon the first 6 months of counselling wasn't about so much drinking. It was about I was drinking because I couldn't face up to processing things, and it was hard. It was confronting. There was a lady there. She was wonderful, She was an old. She's retired now, but gee, she kept me accountable. She she challenged me and say something. But why do you think that way? Why? Or whatever, and just give you a different perspective on looking at things. And it was hard. It was hard. Like, you come out and you be drained, because you're at a low point in your life anyway, and you're reflecting on the thing that's, had the biggest trauma on your life. And
of course.
But it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
It doesn't go away. And I just, that was the time for whatever reason, that was when I could first start to work through it, and I'm glad that I have, and
Of course. And you move forward now and you do these walks with the community and stuff like that. I imagine that you would meet a lot of people and share a lot of heavy, emotionally driven stories with these people.
Well, do you know what? It's probably not so much that. These people, they're really such a really nice bunch of people. The lady who runs it, she is the kindest, most happiest, motivated person I've ever met. And, she's got the patience of a saint. And I always say to her, I says, if it wasn't for you, Davina, this would not happen. She is just so patient, and she pushes things along. And it's the Rotary groups. And, I've had nothing to do with these people, and they took us in and let us be part of it. And they're just a nice, positive bunch of people. And it's been a great experience. The other thing that we did, who I first met Tristan, we soon was actually only a number of weeks after Brody passed away. My wife was looking at the ABC website, and there was a thing called Talk About Mental Health, and it was a Kiwi couple, and they'd lost. It was an Australian couple, and they'd lost their son. And what it was about was getting all this chalk together and getting people in the community to come down and just write on footpaths, like messages or pictures, just sharing, just trying to open up the discussion about mental health, and how whatever form that was, like getting a discussion going or sending a positive message. So we did that. I think it was about 3 weeks after Brody passed away. Don't know how we got that organised, and we've done it every year since. And just we advertise it on the local Facebook groups, and members of the community come down and get part of it. And the big thing that we get out of that is like I suppose, like myself, had to face up and talk about things. But you see people my age or whatever, they rock up and they've got their kids with them, mums and dads, and they got their kids, and it's a supportive, positive sort of atmosphere where you can start a conversation, which I suppose people our age or some people feel like it's difficult to talk about. Yeah. So you can just draw a picture. Oh, what do you write? What's that about? And rah, rah, rah. And then it starts a conversation about mental health and awareness and all that sort of stuff, and just saying it's okay, it's all right to talk about. And then other people, if they want some help, Lifeline come along, and they're there and can sort of help people along the way. So that's something that other Brody's families have come together. So Brody's father's family, his mother's family, and myself have been lucky enough to come and work together. And
do you feel sharing Brody's story has maybe helped others going through similar things, help them sort of process the stages of their grief and process their emotions?
Do you know what? I think the beauty of that event is we hear that some people have reached out.
Yeah.
But the other thing is we don't know how many people it's helped, and I think that's a really good thing, because those images are on the footpath for a week. So whatever happens, people are walking along there, and it could have an impact to someone who wasn't there on the day. They've just seen it, and I think that's the good thing about it, to say, look, it's out there.
Just change somebody's perception.
It's out there. You'll never know. You'll never know, and that's a really I suppose. That's the hope,
It's a beautiful sentiment, is taking something from people that have experienced something so unfortunate and trying to turn it around and put positivity back out into the world.
Yeah.
And sort of learn from it and grow from it, and share that with other people, and try and draw good from a really bad situation, I suppose.
Because it's not going away, and you know what? I tell you, I would not wish this on anyone, to lose someone, it's just,
under circumstances that must feel so preventable. Really heavy. So when is this walk around Palm Beach and Lake Richmond?
Oh, you got me on the spot now, and I'm on the. This is bad. It's Mind the Walk. So if you have a look at the,
I think I've seen it pop up on the Facebook page.
I've got a. Oh, geez, I'm going to get in trouble for this.
But, no, that's all right.
I'll have a quick look.
Top of your mind at your moment. We've just been talking some pretty heavy stuff. So,
it's the 22nd of October.
Yeah.
There we go. I'm not in trouble now. But yeah, it's a great event, and I tell you what, I've lived in Rockingham all my life, and I've actually learnt some stuff about Lake Richmond I never knew. There's actually stuff that is recognised by the United Nations.
Yeah.
Around Lake Richmond that I had no idea about. There's
Is that the thromlodites or something like that?
And
they're
there's
the oldest living organism in the world.
Yep, and there's some pines that are specific to the area as well. It's really interesting.
Yeah, Lake Richmond actually apparently used to open up out near, where that small island is that they call the pond down, all the kite surfers go down in Waikiki. Apparently Lake Richmond used to open up to there.
Oh, okay.
I'd come all the way into Lake Richmond. So
I'm not sure about that, but It's nice. Yeah, it's good, and there's something, I suppose that's the other thing about the chalk day and those walk days is it's slightly different. There's some people that play sport, they're good at sport or whatever, and that's their way of expressing things. But like the walk, it's about there's things there like the bird watchers. There's different things there for different people, and what works for me doesn't work for everyone else, and vice versa. So. I suppose all these different events is just giving people the opportunity to say, wow, I didn't know that was out there. That's something that I'm surprisingly interested in.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's the same with
again, so I suppose changing the perception and just broadening people's view on the world and what's out there. Unfortunately, brought together by events such as you've experienced with Brody, and I imagine a lot of the people there have experienced similar unfortunate events, but hopefully come together and grow from it. And, meet new interesting people and have new interesting experiences.
Definitely.
It's been really great to have a chat with you today, Mark. We might wrap it up here, but I hope that this helps sort of, like we're saying, break some stigma. I hate the word myself because it's just sort of bandied around a lot in these discussions, but hopefully open the discussion and help. Like you're saying, it's a problem that's not going away. There's no sort of toolkit that you can have to fix it, but we can at least sort of open the discussion, and if it helps somebody maybe recognise early signs of it or deal with processing emotions after it, I hope that we've done some good today. So.
Yeah, actually, the last thing I want to say, the ST word is statistic.
Yeah,
I've listened to so many people talk about, like mental health and suicide rates and all that sort of thing. And I remember I was just felt so grateful. I was listening to this man. He was introducing the stats from one of the years in Australia. And he says, he gave the number and he said, people. He says, they're not statistics, they're people.
Not numbers, they're people.
They're people. These were people of our community, members of our community.
Yeah.
And I thought it meant it was a recognition. Yeah. Because it can become very just matter of fact, and it is people, and they matter.
Yeah,
and the people
they're all people's sons, daughters, fathers, mothers. They're people that are integral to their community. They're not just numbers that make up these statistics.
Exactly,
they have real world impact on people. So.
Yeah, so that's the sort of thing I think we need to keep in mind is that we're all members of the community and we all prosper when we support one another and we're at can be able to be at our best. So
absolutely, it's more than just statistics and finding a solution. It's real people, real problems, real
exactly people that someone loves and matters to them.
Yeah. No, again, thanks heaps for being here with us today, Mark. And I wish you all the best with the walk coming up, and I wish you all the best with remembering Brodie in the best way possible, mate.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about him and share my experience.
Thanks for being open with us, mate. We'll wrap this up for now. All right. I'll pop the slides down on this and we will cut the live stream.